working. Hello to everyone. Michael Spencer, Greg M, Dave, Wayne Taylor, Arthur King, and the Tech Doctor Network, and whoever else is here. I'm glad you joined me today. I got some interesting... this last week has just been quite unexpected. Let me put it that way. So strange things have been happening, and I want to show you. That's the reason I titled this video the way that I did. I've got... what did I start with here? Okay, demonetization, first of all. So this is the second time that I've had a video demonetized by YouTube, and the first time I was able to fix it by changing one of the keywords in the description. So I had done a video where I listed a bunch of phone repair tools, and I used the term heat gun. Okay, so we use this dude, not a hot air station, but we also use a heat gun, and you can see why they call it a heat gun, right? It's a gun that produces heat. That's what it's used for. So YouTube apparently does not like to sell advertising to anyone if you're talking about guns. So I can see those a little misunderstanding there, and I just went in and I kind of spelled it different, or I used a different term so people would understand what it meant. And I appealed to YouTube and said, hey, this is about phone repair. There's really no reason to demonetize that I know of. Check it out again. And they reviewed it manually and said everything's cool. We're going to go ahead and turn the monetization on. And for the record, monetization on YouTube is not a huge deal. You'll hear people complain and cry and rant and rage about how terrible it is that YouTube won't monetize their videos. And it's kind of like not a great way to make money. Let me put it that way. If you're depending on monetization on your videos, you better be getting like in the millions of views per videos. Otherwise, you're really not making a whole lot of money. But, I know it's the principle of the thing that matters. And it's unfortunate, and it certainly does not encourage creators to produce new content if they can't make money, from various streams of revenue. And that's one of them. AdSense is definitely one of them. And on the other hand, I see YouTube's perspective. It's difficult to sell advertising when you're talking about controversial topics. Again, it's unfortunate. I don't like it, but it is what it is. You're not going to generally have a very strong, extreme opinion of some sort that you want to display to your customers in your place of business. It's just not a great idea. There are other places to do that. If you're trying to sell to the public and everyone wants to give you their money, you don't want to turn certain people away because they don't agree with your opinion. So it's not very wise to do that, and I totally understand that, unless that's what your channel happens to be about. So if YouTube says they don't want to monetize, it's really not a terrible thing. I mean, it's not good, obviously, but keep in mind that if YouTube demonetizes a video, that means they're not making any money on it either. And I've kind of thought for a while that YouTube, I think, is big enough now that they can kind of say, you know what, if you don't want to advertise with us, don't, because there are lots of people who get their content through this, this source. They go to YouTube for content, and they don't watch TV, and they don't listen to the radio, and they don't use whatever other means that advertisers have to reach them. So it seems like YouTube will be big enough at this point where they could say, you know what, if you don't want to reach our audience, fine, we'll sell it to someone who does. But, obviously that's not the way they're doing business at this point. And I understand that. It's their call, really. They can do whatever they think is best for their business. And my understanding is that there's not a whole lot of profit being made on the YouTube platform. Obviously, everything that goes into building this thing out and storing, basically unlimited amounts of media, that's going to cost some money. So they say they're probably barely above break even, if that, because obviously when they get some revenue, they also have to split it with the creator. So no argument there, but this is one that really threw me off, and I don't understand what happened. And I'm curious to get your opinion. Let's switch this here to where we can have my chat. Hopefully will pop up here momentarily. And then I'll bring you a screen capture that I think is interesting. It says the video is unavailable. So I hope you guys are still there, but I'm not getting chat for some reason. So let me try to fix this real quick, because I certainly want to have that included. Where is my stream? Oh, here's what we need to do. I need to go back over here and change my chat settings, and hopefully this will work, because I think I was actually streaming on another channel. Okay, where'd it go? Now I have nothing there. Okay, there we go. Right? I saw it for a second. Okay, all right, so here we go. So guys, check this out. This is a real strange one to me. I'm not sure what's going on here. I'm baffled, honestly. And again, not angry, just I don't understand it. So this was on the, what was the date? This was January 8th when I did a tech hangout. It was titled, hey, we're back, or something along those lines. And if I go to my channel, which I'm going to share here what I'm looking at. So if you take a look at my channel right over here, and I know that's probably a little tough, so let's zoom in a bit if we can. Can we make this bigger? Okay, so right here, I've got Tech Hangout Live, not suitable for advertisers. What? Because I don't understand. I retitled it, and I wanna pose this question to everyone and see if you can help me figure out what happened. So this is a hangout that I did where we did some work on various devices, I think. And you can see here it says not suitable for most advertisers, confirmed by manual review. So this is not just YouTube's algorithm finding something as far as the video description or the title or the content or anything else along those lines. They did that initially, and I appealed and said, why would I don't think this is right. I think that this is suitable for any audience. As you all know, I generally keep it pretty clean around here. There's no obscenity for the most part. There's no nudity. There's no graphic violence. There's nothing that really you should be afraid of your kids seeing that I can think of. Maybe a soldering iron or a heat gun. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. So I appealed to them, and then they said, nope, sorry, we've reviewed this manually, and this is not appropriate content for our advertisers. And I'm baffled as to why. Now I'm going to open up this video because it's my video. This is one of the few situations where I can actually do this. I can show you a video because I own, pretty much the rights to it. And this is where a filter that was stuck on a motherboard would not come off, and someone broke it off, unfortunately. And we've got a bit of I think it's ZXW or Easy Draw on here, and just me talking to you guys. And we're not talking about anything outrageous. Probably the only thing about this video that I can think of that someone might have found objectionable was that at the very beginning, I did run a promo during my intro for 3 minutes, making an announcement for the 9/11 conspiracy theory discussion that I had with Richard Gage. That's the only thing on here that I can possibly imagine someone might have looked at and said, yeah, we don't want our advertisers to pay to put their product on this. But at the same time, I've got dozens of other 9/11 videos and 9/11 conspiracy theories and things where you show the buildings falling down and people jumping out the windows and all sorts of stuff, which has monetization enabled. So again, I really don't understand. And anybody that was here for this live stream, if you can think of a reason why YouTube would say, hey, this is not okay, this is not good content for our advertisers, please let me know. But at this point in time, I can't figure it out. My main goal here is to avoid it in the future. I don't want to say or do anything on my channel that angers the YouTube or the alphabet gods, but apparently I did that and it's too late. And I have no clue as to what that was. But if you guys remember, I've kind of been talking about this for a while. I've always thought that eventually, no matter how right you do things, at a certain point in time, someone's probably going to misinterpret or have some information that isn't, accurate and say, hey, we're going to pull the plug on this. And that's what I'm trying to avoid. I don't want them to shut anything down for no reason, but I kind of get the feeling that that's what happened here. And for someone to go through and manually review that video and say, nope, we do not want our advertisers to put any money into your channel, I don't know what to do. Start a Patreon account or something else. It really kind of irritates me when people bug for money, so I don't want to be somebody who does that. But there it is. This is part one. Okay, this is the first crazy thing that happened to me recently. I'm going to show you a couple others later. Let me open up the chat though, because I do want to see, and this screen's a little small for me to read here. Maybe you guys can tell me what you think. Where did my chat go? Here we go. All right, so hey. Audio on. Oh my, the old gun trigger word. Yeah, apparently even mentioning a gun. Although if you look at the gaming channels, guys, there aren't too many games out there that don't involve guns. And not only do gaming channels get monetization, a lot of them get some extra features that most of us don't. So it just doesn't add up to me. I don't get it. It's so weird. Love how Google takes 30% off the top of super chat donations. Yeah, that's not too cool. But I mean, I know they have to make some money. And I'd rather have, I guess, 70% than no percent. But yeah, that's a weird one. I heard someone else having the exact same issue with that word, the gun word. See, the other one, I don't think I even use that word. And even if I did, how's Google going to figure that out? Who knows? Maybe they have a voice recognition thing going on there. Thing is that people you contact are sometimes like talking to the wall, and you get as much meaningful response. I'll agree with you there completely, Greg. There's an interesting thing about Google in general, and that is you will often get automated responses, and this is typical of a lot of businesses, and the difference is if you want to buy some advertising, you will get a response from a person. They will call and talk to you on the phone if you're spending money. But if you're on the other end and you're benefiting from advertising dollars, it's a little more difficult to appeal this stuff and to get a direct answer. So yeah, that's 100% accurate. It works. Lowest settings. Mike, you do a good job. No worry. Oh, thank you, Carl. Hey, haven't seen you for a while. PayPal accounts. Some providers use PayPal as well since they take less off the top for one-time donations. Yeah, I'm rolling that around in my head. But, again, guys, I'm not here to beg for money. I was really hoping that this channel would promote my business, and it's done a good job at that. And if you're wondering why I haven't published as often lately, it is for that very reason. I have stacks of phones and tablets and game consoles coming in part due to using YouTube as an advertising medium of my own. So just by having the content out there and putting descriptive words in underneath the video, that's helped out. So for those of you who run a business of any sort, I encourage you to do the same thing. Make sure to tag your location and maybe even zip codes and area codes so that Google knows where you're at and will feed these videos to their viewers in that area. Okay, so that's one down, right? So again, this is kind of an open issue for me. I'm going to try to figure out what happened and then let you all know what that is. And so hopefully we can all avoid that same problem in the future where YouTube says no more money for you, which is kind of a bummer. It's not a lot, but it's something, and everything adds up. So on top of that, another interesting thing happened to me last week, and I'm going to do this out of order. So I want to go to the counterfeit first of all. So my soldering iron, my favorite soldering tip, my bent tip on this soldering station right here finally wore out, and it was giving me an error code, and I couldn't figure out why. And so I did some Googling, and if it helps anyone, you can actually test these things. I'm going to show you under the microscope here real quick, if I can get this thing not to roll around on me, because that's what it tends to do. So let's see if we can switch the microscope on here. Oh, that's not it. We want this one. Okay, so if you have one of these cartridge systems with this Hako, they have a couple different models that support this type of iron. Where are we at? There we go. This lag makes it tricky. Okay, so if we zoom out all the way, which I think we are, let's move this over slowly, because again, the lag just kind of messes you up here. Down here on the bottom of the iron, and it's going to be hard for me to show you the multimeter, but if you are having an error code on your soldering station on these particular types of tips, you can take your multimeter and just put it in resistance mode. And if you go down here at the bottom end and touch these two contacts right here, and then, yeah, like I said, I can't really get the meter on the screen at the same time, but if you take my word for it, you should be somewhere around 8 ohms resistance, and that will indicate that this is doing its job properly. And when I started getting the error code on my other tip, it was not showing me 8 ohms. I want to say it was saying OL. So there was some problem in there where it wasn't communicating from here to here, and I don't know why they use that to figure it out, but I am sure it has something to do with the machine detecting that you have a soldering tip attached. So what did Mike do? He thought that he was going to save some money somehow, right? And that was mistake number one, obviously, because anytime you spend less, you're typically going to see that there is a reason why that product didn't cost as much, right? So I went online, and instead of ordering the correct, let's see, how do I shut this sucker off again so you can actually see? So instead of ordering the correct tip, from a supplier somewhere, which I found out that DigiKey actually carries these soldering iron tips for this station here, which is pretty cool. So I found this other brand, and I am going to show you, and I'm still trying to get this worked out with them, but I found this brand on a popular site that starts with an A, okay? And I thought they had 3 of these soldering iron tips for 15 bucks. They're supposed to be fully compatible with this station. And so I said, why not? If I can get 3 for the price of 1, where's the loss at? I mean, the station is what does the work. All this is really is the conductor, right? So as long as the tip is made out of a decent material, shouldn't be a problem, right? So I get these in and I plug it in. I want to say this is the one. This is the one that I was actually planning on using right away. And I was actually in the middle of a training session So this came in from UPS or whoever's delivery system it was. Put it in the soldering station, hit the power, and we get this. And watch it make a liar out of me now. So if we want to turn on this side, we get this error again. This little flashing SE thing, right? Okay, so now it came back. I am just about, I don't know, maybe I just need a new microphone. God, that's annoying. How long was I going on before I finally noticed that the audio wasn't working again? All right, I don't know how deep we want to get into this, guys. My apologies. I don't know what to say. Nothing wants to work around here lately. Even me sometimes. All right, where were we? Hey, Dave, you know, changing the soldering iron tip, it kind of seems like it might have worked. Isn't that weird? If I did not know better, I would think this was Skype. Yeah, me too. Error 51. All right, you know what? I'm going to try this one more time, and if the audio dies, then I'm just going to get another microphone and try again another day. Hopefully this will stay on here. And this has been an ongoing thing with this USB mic. I wish I could get like a real microphone plugged into this thing, because I think these things just are buggy. Anyways, I don't know where I left off, and there's probably no point in continuing, because whoever comes across here is going to go, yeah, this video is terrible. So anyways, I got counterfeit soldering iron tips. I got demonetized by YouTube for who knows why. Oh, and I got one more thing for you. For my first time ever, this is how sad things have gotten, folks. I actually got counterfeit solder wick. Counterfeit solder wick. Like, how is there even a market? I mean, I just don't understand. Like, why would you make a fake solder wick? Anyways, you got to see this stuff. It's crazy. I know it's hard to tell here, but first of all, we've got two completely different designs on the package. As you can see, they're pretty close. You know, the print's a little different, but for the most part, the sticker's the same. But obviously, the spool is a completely different size, which I imagine any manufacturer might do that at some point, right? But check this out. Let's see if we can let's see if anything's going to work today. I think that we want this. All right, so what tipped me off was I started soldering with this thing out of the package, and it wasn't picking up anything. And I generally will grab a hold of these, and if you feel the wick, you can tell the thickness is just, it's like more than twice as thick as this other one. So I thought, yeah, that's kind of weird. All the numbers match. This should be the exact same product, but it's not. But if you look here under the microscope, on the top, if we zoom in here, hopefully this will be clear enough that you can tell. But you can see there's a completely different texture between the real stuff that's on the top and then down here on the bottom. This is a very heavy braid, and it's just difficult to get enough heat, you know, especially when you're working with a very small soldering iron tip. And on the good stuff, they've actually got some sort of material. So this is the, I want to call it aftermarket or knockoff or what do you want to say? Counterfeit here. This is the counterfeit stuff. That's what that looks like. And if you look at the real one, there's kind of a powdery substance. Hopefully you can see it on the microscope. There's some material that's kind of included in between the braid here, and my understanding is that assists. It's sort of like a dry, flux that's already woven into the braid, and it'll start to melt as you're soaking stuff up, and it helps it to transfer heat better, obviously. And this stuff, you know, besides being super thick, where are we at here? Besides being super thick, it does not have that material on the inside of it. It's so hard to center things when you have a lag with your camera. Let's see. I'm going to have to get a new video card. Anyways, this stuff is terrible. It does not do the trick for phones. You could probably use it on bigger projects with much bigger soldering iron tips. But I'm just like, really, if we're gotten to the point where we're making counterfeit solder wick, that's really sad, number one. And I kind of feel that it's time to find a different brand, because in my experience, if a brand is big enough that people are making knockoff, you know, imitations, you're never really going to be 100% sure you're getting the real deal. So I'm going to look for a smaller manufacturer that has a good product that isn't popular enough yet for anyone to try to make counterfeits for. That's my solution to it. It's Monday. That's why these things go south. Yeah, and I wouldn't blame anyone who left, because this is just, it's as irritating to me, I'm sure, as it is to you. But let's see. We still got a few people watching. Lucky me. I appreciate you guys hanging on. Hey, Michael, you're back. Good. You didn't miss anything, because we had no audio. Do we have audio now? Let me double check here. I need to keep this on my screen so I can keep track of it. Hey, where is Nate? Because I have a question. If you're on, Nate, and I haven't seen you so far. Let's see. Louis Rossman had no audio today. Either OBS crashed on him and he had to restart it. Interesting. You know, Greg, I'm finding that this microphone is giving me trouble not only on OBS, but I have another chat program. Well, basically on Discord, I'm having the same issue. So I believe it's either the computer itself, something about the USB connection, and I've tried multiple USBs, multiple USB connectors, cables. I think it's this microphone that has the problem. I don't know. Okay, cool. So we have audio, and I'm going to try to get through this. This is probably going to go later than 3, and if we lose audio, then we'll have to quit. But I'm going to try to solve a problem, and maybe you guys can even help me out with it. I have got, let's see. So I've got a Moto X Pure, and I know we don't see those too often. Let's open this camera up again here. Okay. So I have a Moto X Pure. If you're not familiar with this, well, a lot of the Motorola's, they kind of share similar designs. And when you open them up, they're not too terrible to work on, but there's just not a lot of information in the way of schematics, board views, that kind of stuff, because Motorola has a very small market share. I want to say that last year they had something around 5%. I may be off on that, but I think they had about 5% market share in the US. So they're not selling a whole lot of phones here, and it's too bad because it was a great company at one point, but we just don't see as many of their products here anymore. Now this one came in because, let's see if we have a description on it. This says that, oh, I thought we had a description on here. I guess we don't. In any case, I know what's wrong with it. The problem with this phone is that the lock button is not functioning and it's been replaced. So we've kind of ruled out the part as being the problem, which would obviously indicate that there is something on the motherboard that is causing this issue. So what I decided to do was cut through a lot of the stuff that's going to waste time and try to get right down to it. And then I do want to ask a couple of you, if anyone has a Moto X Pure motherboard laying around their shop, I would be super thankful if you could go grab it and take a look at something on there, because this is the situation that we find ourselves in when we have a device and not a whole lot of information available about it. So what this came in as was not having a functioning lock button. So I want to walk you through this process. I hope that this helps anyone out there who might be interested in this kind of troubleshooting. And that was first thing when it came in. I want to show you under the scope so you can really see what I'm talking about. So here's how this mechanism works. If you look over here, I think, is that it? Yeah. So let's get some light on this sucker. So on the back of this device, let's get focused. So we need to go in or out. We need to go out. Okay, so on the back of this phone, you're going to have a flash flex cable right here. That's the big wide one that I'm pointing to. And that actually has a secondary cable here which plugs in to that one on the back. So if you look here under the scope, you'll see one of these little connectors of this sort. And what we have to do is basically, can we zoom out here? Yes, we can. Okay. So this is how this thing connects. You've got your lock button over here on the side, which I'm just going to have to trust that this thing is lining up with what I'm looking at. So I've got my lock button here. That's what I'm clicking on. And it connects to this cable that goes all the way over. And the cable connects to another flex cable, which is where the flash and I want to say just the flash, it looks like, are interfaced with the motherboard. So this wasn't plugged in, but I assume that they had already had it plugged in previously. So my first thing is this. We want to determine how this lock button works, right? Because when we look at something like a volume button or a power button, tell me we didn't lose the microphone again. Okay. So if we look at a lock button or a power button, it's basically a switch is all it is. So you've got voltage that is ready to go. It's sitting there. It's typically going to be a 1.8 volt line. And until you click on that button, that switch is open. So when you hit the button, you close the switch, you complete the circuit, and then of course when you release, it's going to be open again. You don't want to have the button you don't want to have the switch closed. So you press it, turn the phone on, lock the screen, whatever it is. It sends that message into the phone to tell it to wake up the screen, to put the screen to sleep. And if you hold it down, it actually does have a different function, and it tells the phone to shut off if you keep it on there long enough, right? So my question is, first let's determine, whoa, let me not bump into, let me get this out of the way because I'm going to be bumping into this all day. Let's determine and kind of map out how this button works, right? So we've got this cable here that you can see, and we want to know which of these actually are the ones that are used to send that signal to the phone to tell it, hey, we're pressing on the power button, right? So without a schematic, we have to do some real simple, what's the word I'm looking for? Not troubleshooting. What I'm going to do is go ahead and plug this in, and as a lot of you are already ahead of me on this, and that's cool, but for anyone who isn't, let's start here. Now, one thing that we notice, if we look very closely at this connector, we can get a clue, we can get a hint. You see that G at the top right-hand corner? To me, that's going to say that's probably going to be where the ground is at, so we would expect this to be ground. We don't know for sure, but we know that we're going to have a ground, and then we're going to have something else that is going to be connected to that ground momentarily while we press on that button, right? Okay, so I'm going to take my multimeter, and I'm just going to put it into continuity mode so we get it to beep when we touch it. That way we have an audible confirmation that we have closed the circuit when we get to the right place. And what I'm going to do here off camera, it's going to be a little tough to see. I'm going to hold my probes. One of them is going to stay on the ground, and the other one, I'm going to start probing these other areas while I'm pressing that button, which is going to be tricky, okay? So I'm holding my probes like this, and I've got my lower finger holding the button in, and then I'm going to release it, and it's going to be hard to see because I'm off camera, but this is what I'm doing. So if I make contact with these first two pins, just like this, you can hear nothing, right? There's nothing beeping right now if I touch these first two together. I'm going to keep my probe on that first line. I'm going to depress the power button and hold it with my other finger, which is a tricky thing to do, and I'm going to go ahead and start touching these other connections. There's a beep. Now if I release the button, I still have a beep. Okay, so these are both going to ground. So let's go up here, no beep. I'm going to press the button in. Where are you? Okay, no beep there, no beep there, no beep there, and we have a beep here. Now if I release the button, no more beep, right? Okay, so you're following me, I'm sure. We know that we have another ground right over here, and we suspect that this right here, if I connect these two and while I'm pressing on the power button, there's our answer. So this is going to be what we're going to follow and figure out why this connecting to this, sorry, I'm off camera here. If these two connect and we press on the button and it beeps, then we know that this part of the circuit is functioning correctly, right? I'm just going to follow this up this cable and see if I can't figure out where this goes. Okay, now we do have some components right here, and this got me for a second. Anytime I see this, I want to take a closer look and make sure we're not missing anything, okay? And you can tell by looking at these, if they're nice and round like that, sorry, it's really tough to focus this. Okay, if these are nice and round the way that top one is, we can assume that it probably came from the factory like this unless someone was poking around in here and melted something. I know that bottom one looks a little funny, and that's probably because I probed it earlier on. But typically if something's damaged, you'll have a very rough or kind of a sharp surface. You won't have this nice rounded ball right there. So to me, that looks factory. The rest of these look like they're all in the right position. But if we wanted to, we could follow this and we could just say, okay, where is this ground exactly on these other components? So I'm going to put one probe on the ground once again and go over here and say, well, that goes to ground. That doesn't, and that doesn't. So we know that we have our ground right here. And if we go down and touch on this second line, this second connector, and we start probing over here, obviously it's not going to be there. It's right there. And that's it. So we know that this is where we're going to follow. And if we check the other side, whoops, get this stuff off the tip of my probe. So this does not go directly across. These do not have continuity. These have got to be capacitors, I'm guessing. That's beeping there. Now, that means if we keep our probe on one side of this, we should have a beep somewhere else down this line, all the way over on the part that connects inside the phone. And look at this. This is what's annoying about Motorola. by the way. Be careful when you take these apart, because you have a switch, which just fell out, and a couple tiny little springs, which are easy to lose, and you have to make sure you keep track of these, otherwise your button isn't going to spring back when you press on it. So yeah, it's just a very strange design. I don't believe this is, the reason that Motorola's not doing very well, but it certainly makes you wonder what they were thinking when they built this thing. I mean, talk about an awkward setup. And if you want to repair those, watch out, because if that spring flies out of the room, you're going to need a donor. You're not going to be able to go to the hardware store and grab another one. Let's see. Check, see if there's a recall, known issue for that mic. There may very well be, Greg, but in this case, I know that's not the issue. I would certainly check, absolutely, if you know that that's a problem, but it's not this time, and you're gonna love what the real reason is. Okay, now if we look at this, what I'm checking is I followed this cable up where the flash is located. Okay, so we plugged in down here, we followed this up the cable, go over to the left, it goes to a connector, and if we flip this over on the other side, we have this little connector right here, and this is what plugs into the board and transmits that signal to close the circuit. Now I'm going to save some time and tell you that earlier what I did is I put my probe on that line that needs to be activated, and then I mapped it out here, and I want to say it was the third connection right here. Okay, so on this left hand side, number 3 from the bottom, which I keep moving around, sorry. Okay, number 3 on the bottom of that is going to be what we need to have to close that circuit. That's the one that corresponds with the other side, and there is in fact a connection between this pop connector and this other side where we found that part of the circuit. So we know that this is doing its job. It's actually telling whatever this plugs into that, hey, we're hitting the lock button. So this is all good. I've already tested this. Now when we get down to the board itself, I'm going to try to do this so you guys can't jump ahead of me, because I know you're all going to see it way before I really want you to, because I want to show you something else first of all. Maybe I can get this in just the right position. Okay, so here's what I did. I went inside and I said, okay, number 3 from the bottom on the right hand side, because remember this is going to be flipped over because we're looking at the side that's facing up. Still get our deal back on here. Oh, let's make it beep. Okay, so what I did is I already know that number 3, which is this third pin from the bottom, that's the one that we're looking to detect where there's a break. There's a part of that line from the button to wherever the phone, whatever part of the phone is that says, hey, let's turn this on. There's something is interrupting that circuit, right? So I wanted to check here first. I went to number 3 and I just basically followed. You can actually see the trace underneath the PCB. It just goes up to this top. This is really hard to do. It goes straight to this guy right here, okay? So I've got my probe here. I'm going to put my probe over here, I think. There we go. Okay, so if I touch number 3 to this component, we still have a beep. If I check this component from one side to the other, we still have a beep. Okay, so we know that all the way to this point, when you press the power button, there's a signal that's saying you should be turning on. Now I'm going to back up here for a second, real quick, before I show you what I ended up finding out. And that is what should have been the first clue, and this is what I was looking at earlier, and what's really kind of a pain about Motorola's. If you take a look at the connector that connects to that little pop connector there, take a look at this, dude. Let's see if we can get it on the screen, Mike. Okay, take a look at this. These are just a very awkward kind of setup. Let's zoom out. And too much light probably for you guys to really see this clearly, unfortunately. Okay, you'll kind of have to maybe take my word that this thing looks like somebody was having a difficult time getting it connected to the board. You can see they pushed down in a few spots, and there's a couple marks up here at the top. So what tends to happen is it's difficult to get these aligned properly without magnification. That's the bottom line. I hear a lot of people complaining about, oh, you shouldn't use this tool, and you shouldn't use a screwdriver, and you shouldn't use that. And the bottom line is, if you can see what you're doing, it's very unlikely that you're going to damage what you're working on. But most people, I believe, think that they see a lot more than they really do. And I've been guilty of this myself. And I realized that if I don't have reading glasses or a microscope, I can't plug this kind of stuff in. I hope that you can, but whatever you do, you don't want to delude yourself and believe that, oh, my eyes are perfect, I can see exactly what I'm doing. And you're really kind of doing it by sense of feel rather than actually seeing what goes on underneath the microscope. And since you guys have seen how small this stuff is, it's unfortunate that we have a lot of people that are very stubborn and won't just say, yeah, I need magnification to see what's going on, to do this safely, because you're trying to get the thing fixed. And if in the process you're causing more damage, that's obviously an issue. Now, I am going to jump to the answer here, and that is, what is really going on with this? Well, if we were to continue to trace that line, guess what? You can probably already see what's happening here. And that is, if we take that third component there, which is supposed to be sending a signal to the phone from here, okay, it goes right there, and it goes along here, and it goes through what I believe used to be, I think, and this is why I was hoping when you guys had a board like this on hand, because I don't. I believe that is a third glass diode. Oh, geez, this is such a pain. Okay, see that? Whoops. Okay, so you see what's happening here? There is, in fact, a break in the line. If we want to confirm that, we can take our multimeter and, pretty straightforward here, right? If I'm beeping here, then I would assume it needs to beep over here. This needs to be a continuous connection, and it's not, because not only is the component gone, but that pad is completely removed from the board. So there's definitely a break in this line. The downside to this is going to be the guesswork that's involved in determining what goes there and in what position, because I have a strong feeling it's going to be another glass diode, which means it is directional. I can't just grab a capacitor off of a similar model and say, yeah, first of all, I wouldn't know what the capacitance was, but secondly, this is a directional component, so we need to make sure that it's facing the right way. If it's not, what's the worst that can happen? I don't know. We could probably guess that voltage might flow in the wrong direction, and that could cause an issue with, I don't know, the power button, maybe the phone itself. I'm really not 100% sure, but I certainly don't want to take any unnecessary risks here, if they can possibly be avoided. Now, the worst part, of course, is that we don't have anything to solder to on this lower pad. That is not going to be fun. We're going to have to figure out a way to get this connected. Could we just jump over that diode and run some sort of connection, between those two things? Maybe, I don't know, but I'm of the mind that most of these components are here for a reason, especially when you're looking at what I believe is going to go in this position. So let's see. If you simply short those two together without the cable connected, does the phone simply exhibit the issue with the phone missing filter? I'm not sure, Greg. I haven't tried it yet. I have a feeling that it probably will function, but my goal is to get this thing back to where it works, and we don't have to worry about any problems later on, in the future that are related. Would think the orientation would be like the one just below it. Good idea. Now here's the thing. This is the tricky thing about these. So I unfortunately don't have a Moto X Pure on hand to confirm that. I was hoping that someone else would. But if not, there is still kind of a way that we can figure out the answer to this question. And the bizarre thing, Greg, is that the direction on these things, it's all over the place depending on what you look at. So looking at an adjacent component is probably an indication. I believe so, yes. And what I think you're going the right direction with this, because if we check these, we already can kind of tell by looking. I'm going to put a probe on ground here. We can kind of tell that this goes to ground, right? That means that this side does not go to ground, which means the side with the stripe down here on the bottom. And by the way, coincidentally, these are for the volume buttons. So we have a power button up here, and we have a volume up and a volume down, I believe, is what these two are for. So the circuit should be very similar in the way that it functions. Now, with this one going to ground on, actually, take it back. Okay, so this capacitor goes to ground, and I want to say this diode does too, but it's very difficult to determine that because it's such a small area that you have to get inside. So I want to show you guys a little trick that I've been using here, which may make your life easier. If you have, you can sharpen these probes down to a needle point, and I've seen people solder like an actual needle onto the end of their probes, and I'm not sure that's really necessary. They tend to get dull after a while. You break them off, all kinds of funny stuff happens. So rather than do that, I have a simple solution, and it is a very basic little piece of equipment. All this is a little clip-on type connector, and what I will do is I will clip one of these onto my probes, and then I'm going to clip the other end onto something that's smaller. In this case, I've got a straight pin, which is conductive, And this way we can go inside here, put one probe on ground, and map this out without too much trouble. If I go in and touch right down here on the bottom of this diode, you can hear this side is going to ground. So we've got the striped side is making contact with ground. If we go up here to the striped side of this one, we can see that goes to ground, right? So it would make sense that whatever is ground, and we know, I can tell you right now, this is going to be ground on the top, okay? So the stripe should go at the top, right? And correct me, guys, if you think I'm missing or overlooking something, please let me know, because I'm about 99% confident that we need to have it, just like you said, Greg, in the same position as the one right below it. But just to be safe, since I don't have a Moto X Pure on hand, I do happen to have a couple other Motorola's, which we're going to need that component anyways, right? We need to steal that from somewhere else. Well, fortunately for us, Motorola doesn't change too much in the design of their power and volume button design as far as the control goes. So this is an old beat up board that I used for who knows what. I had to strip something off of it. You can see a big old mess over here. But if we go down to where the buttons connect, which I want to say is going to be, I was looking at it earlier. Okay, so right over here, we have a very familiar looking layout, right? So we've got 3 glass diodes and 3 capacitors that even have the same thing. It's BA or BA. I guess these are like sheep diodes. They are kind of set up in a similar fashion. So if we check these, now remember on the other one, it was which side that was going to ground. I'm going to have to jog my memory here shortly. But if we check on here, hey, we still have audio. What do you know? We can kind of see that we've got ground on the right-hand side, which means once again that the stripe side goes to ground. The side without the stripe does not go to ground. And hopefully that's the same thing I said just a second ago. On this one, however, I'm not getting a beep on either side, which is a little strange. And that is the one reason I was skeptical before I did this repair, because what if the volume button, or what if the lock button is a little different than the volume buttons? And that's entirely possible. You know, maybe it works in a different manner. So no beep there, no beep there. Is there a problem with my something else here? I don't know. In fact, was I even getting ground over here? I wasn't. I was probably touching this. So no ground there. Maybe I'm not grounded on the board. Let's try this. Yeah, I should be. This should go to ground, right? What am I missing? Something is not making sense, and this is where my question is. I believe that the orientation would be like the one below it, but this kind of puts a bit of a doubt into my mind. Now I'm going to set this one aside because I do have a Moto, whatever this is. I honestly can't even remember which model this was. I think it's a Moto Droid of some sort. And once again, you'll see a very familiar looking setup for the volume controls. So we have right here is our, let's see, that is our volume up button. This is our power button right over here. And what I did was something very similar. Take a look up here, and you can see we have these all in a row. I know they look a little funny. It's kind of hard to see, but we can actually map out where this volume button is. Like, what does it control and what does it do? Okay, so if I push on this button, some circuit that's over in this same area is going to close, and we'll get continuity where we didn't have it before, right? So let me untangle this mess of wires. Make sure that we have a good ground here. Okay, so that's ground. And this is an awkward one. I am going to basically set my probe in a position where it is grounded and I don't have to hold on to it, which should make my life slightly easier. That's the idea anyways. I know I could solder something on here or use a clamp or maybe stick this in the SIM card tray. That's probably the easiest thing to do. Okay, so I've actually got a probe kind of in the SIM card tray, not too far, so it won't do any damage. And let's see what we got. No beep there, no beep there. And I want to say if I hold the button down, nothing, 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 nothing. So let's come down here and check this out. So right over here, this is the location of what controls the lock button. I know I'm stretching this out, but I'm hoping this is going to be helpful to someone that gets in a similar situation. If I can focus this silly microphone. Okay, so again, you see a very similar looking component, right? It's black on one side, white on the other. If I touch over here, I've got nothing on the top or the bottom. And when we close this, we press the button, we have a beep on both sides. Okay, so obviously, whatever this is connected to does not go to ground until we hit the button. And you can see that it is in fact got a trace that runs from here to here. So that means that the striped side on this phone, the striped side is what is going to constantly be connected to this circuit. And we would assume that the opposite side goes to ground. I want to confirm that here in just a second. So let me get my little small probe thing on here one more time, just to make sure. And let's confirm. Just dropped a straight pin. That's neat. Okay, let's confirm first of all that my probe's still working. Nothing? Come on. If you don't get this attached right, obviously that's going to throw things off. Okay. So if we go to this glass diode here and we touch on this side, we do not have ground. This is what is making me very curious. This is not going to ground on either side. But as you saw on the other board, there is one side of the diode that goes to ground all the time. And that's why I was hoping someone here might have one of these boards on hand to confirm that I'm putting this in the right spot. Otherwise, I kind of feel like I should wait until I have a donor, because I certainly don't want to take any chances with the customer's phone. But we've got nothing here. Oh, yes, we do. Okay, there we go. For whatever reason, I didn't have good enough contact. So the non-striped side is what we're going with for ground. Now we can get this repair done, right? Everyone in agreement? Tell me if I'm missing anything. I believe I've thought this through sufficiently to where we have, minimal to no risk, and that is always going to be my my priority, to make sure that we don't end up with something in the wrong spot. But I'm pretty darn confident right now that the non-striped side of that diode is going to be on ground. So we're going to pull one. Yeah, let's see, we could probably pull one from just about anywhere here, right? These all appear to be the same, and I don't think it matters. I'm actually thinking I'm going to pull it off of this other board because I've got missing stuff on here. So one thing I like to do with my donors is if I pick one that I'm going to take components off of, I want to keep taking them off that same phone so that maybe my other one is somewhat complete. We're going to need to confirm. Okay, so we do have a BA right there. I am going to need a board holder for this thing. So bear with me for a second. Everyone who's still here, you're welcome to stay as long as you like. I hope this ends up being helpful. And for everyone else, if you want to watch it later on, I totally understand. This is definitely going to go more than an hour. But with any luck, we'll have a satisfying repair to celebrate when we're done here. That's the idea. So let's start by harvesting a BA, a guy from the A team, I guess. Bad attitude. All right, so we need this dude. Where'd you go? Now we got to refocus everything. Oh, it's so tedious. I know it. Trust me. You know what's really crazy is now I have to focus one eye and then go fix this thing. Apparently my eyes don't match anymore. All right, we still got audio? Cool. Got to see the outcome. See, this is the cliffhanger, right? That's what I said. I want to see the outcome of this. All right, so let's get some flux on this bad boy. And in fact, I've considered maybe grabbing a couple of these because I have a feeling we're going to be seeing them. But then again, it's a Motorola, so how often? It's an awkward spot to get into. What do you guys use for flux that's easy to kind of just squirt onto the board? Because I'm finding these tubes, these applicators, are not my favorite. I don't like doing this manually, but at the same time, I either end up with not enough or way too much flux. So if you have a suggestion for that, I'd love to hear it. Now, the other question is, how difficult is it going to be to get this thing off? We don't want to blow it across the room. We don't want to melt this connector, although if I do, it's not a deal breaker. I'm not really worried about this phone too much, but if we can keep it in one piece, that'll be great. So we'll get our good tweezers, and be ready to go with this one dude right here. Even these super precise tweezers, when you get down to this type of component, you can tell they don't align perfectly. It's just you can't make anything that accurate, I guess. I'm going to take a wild guess here. I think that I think these Motorola's take a little more heat, but I'm going to go with, since it's a surface mount, I'm going to go with about 350-ish. And my airflow is down at 30. I don't want to blow anything away. And let's see if this thing comes off easily. I have a feeling it will, but I do remember Motorola's being a little different when it comes to how much heat they take. So let's find out. Make some noise. I'm just going to push this off the pads rather than try to grab it in this awkward position. Hopefully I don't lose it. And of course the ground side is going to take a little longer. Maybe I will grab it. We'll see. See what happens. Alright, I'm seeing liquid. Come on. I think we might need a tiny bit more heat. So I'm going to go 360 instead. I just don't want to fling this thing across the room, but grabbing a hold of this will be tricky unless I take off the adjacent capacitor there. Wow, maybe we need a lot more heat than I thought. I guess that was just the flux that I was seeing. Alright, so I'm going to go up quite a bit. I'm going to go 375. It's just been so long since I worked on a Moto board before. And you know something else? I've been having to adjust my hot air because it's not as strong as it used to be. Boy, that really is going to take more. Alright, let's crank it up. I always like to be cautious in the beginning. It's gotta be enough. It's gotta be. Really? Wow, that's all I can say. Either my hot air station is sick today, or this thing just takes a lot more heat than I expected. Wow. You starting to melt yet? This is way more than I thought. I'm going to start damaging this thing in a second. You want to come off? No? You don't want to come off either? You guys are killing me. I'm going to start damaging this thing here in a second. Yeah, I'm gonna start melting this connector here. This is crazy. Just starting to budge, I think. This one's almost moving. That ground pad does not want to let go. Alright. Say goodbye to this connector. Well, don't stick there. Jeez. That was 445. I didn't kill the connector, but you can see I was being a little sloppy. And did get a tiny bit of burn on there. Not too worried about it, but that's crazy. Alright, let's not lose that. Need my other board here. Oh boy, my other board's still in the frame. So, well, we don't have a battery attached to it. It should be okay. Let's see, where are you? Oh, I almost forgot. There's even more fun for this one because we got nothing to attach on one side. That's going to be interesting. Alright, so we have this backwards. We want you to go like so. Right? But first we need to sort this thing, which is going to be fun because you can see there's no pad there. So this is going to be like doing I don't even know what to compare it to. Less fun than I was hoping. Alright, first of all, let's try to get this. Jeez. Sit still, would you? Element and hot air station wearing out. I'm pretty sure it is, Greg. I think that over time they just output less heat, and I've been cranking it up, and I know that you can calibrate this, but yeah, I think this heating element after like 2 years or so, especially after doing PlayStations, I think that's what puts the most wear and tear on these, because you're just firing it out at, you know, pretty much max heat for like a couple minutes at a time. But yeah, I think it's time for a new heating element or something, but I can't complain. I mean, this thing has done me good for a long time. Someone said something about a syringe. Maybe you can use a syringe meant to drop insulin. They're tiny and cheap. Interesting. Hey, Harvey. You know, I could. Toothpick for tight spaces. Okay, yeah, I've been using my tweezers just to get down inside there where I can't reach. Almost need an iron on the other end as well as a third arm. Yeah, the third arm would definitely help. All right, so let's see if we can get tiny. Yeah, that's not going to work. Toothpick. That might be better. Yeah, I've actually been putting my tweezers into the flux, and sometimes you get a nice little chunk on the end. Usually you don't. Usually it's in the wrong spot, so you have it like way up here on the elbow. And I also use my little poker tool here. Besides scraping off surfaces, you can kind of use it for stuff like this, or solder mask, just kind of getting the right amount of solder mask in there. So we are going to use which tip? Is this the one that worked? I can't remember. I'm not going to use these aftermarket things. I think they might cause some problems. That's what I'm worried about. So let's get. Can you fit in there? Actually, I think I'll just use the tweezers on this. It's such a weird size and position. All right, so let's fire up the heat, and we'll get some leaded solder in here. Let's see if we can make this thing stick. And this is going to be fun because, as you saw, it's got a pretty decent ability to remove heat. So I'm going to have to deal with that for sure. Get the other side of this thing tinned. I haven't used these today. Alright, so let's get down in here. We might even need a little heat, a little hot air to make this work better. Has I got enough? You gonna work? Yeah, it's gonna be tough. Need a bigger side of this iron to be touching that thing. Let's see, can we come in like so? Yeah, almost. Yeah, you see that? It's gonna have a tough time melting this. Let's get that old factory solder off if possible. Jeez, this stuff is just so sticky. Get some assistance from the hot air. Oh, you know what? If I do that, I'm gonna blow this dude away, so we don't want to lose him. Crap. Okay, this side seems to work better. Not much, but slightly. Well, I guess we'll deal with that when we get to it. My other concern here is how are we going to fill in... this is going to be fun. We're going to need a jumper that goes to... Wow, that's going to be an interesting one. What size jumper do we need for this dude? I think that the 0.02 millimeter stuff, otherwise a piece of solder wick, believe it or not, is almost exactly the same size as this. It's a little heavier, and that's one of the ways I found out for sure that was a counterfeit wick, because I cut off a piece to use it as a jumper, and it was like twice as thick as the stuff that I normally use. So I have to contact that seller and ask them if they want to refund me or send me the real thing, because, you know, paying for counterfeits is not fun. Let's see if this fits in here. This may be... Oh, this stuff is so fun to work with. This might be a little lightweight, actually. Yeah, I think that's going to be too thin. Yeah, that might work, I guess. I'm thinking that anything heavier, which unfortunately I've got to jump up quite a bit of ways if I go to this. I think that this is going to be too heavy, but come to think of it, maybe that heavier soldering wick might be perfect. Let's see, what does this look like? Yeah, that's going to be a little much. That is for something else entirely. So we can go with, wow, I guess we will. Let's use this off-brand wick, because I think it's got enough thickness in a strand that it might be just right. So we need a flat surface to cut this on, and I usually use my board holder, which I don't have over here at the moment. And if you guys are doing jumpers, I actually used to have a spot on my board holder with a whole bunch of wires that were pre-cut and just ready to go, and they're like almost the perfect length, which is not a bad idea. But if you get too sloppy and knock them off, then you got to come back and fix it. So lengthwise, I think, let's just go long for now. We can always cut this down. I was thinking about kind of spiraling it. Oh, what is this? What is that? That is not a wire. I don't know what that is. I was thinking about kind of spiraling this. Jesus, even my razor blades are dirty today. And kind of building up a pad. If you guys haven't seen that, Union Repair did a video that was kind of cool. They rebuilt a pad by setting a piece of wire inside and then just kind of spiraling it around. And I just lost the wire I was going to work with here. See if we can try not to let one get away. All right, you stay there. Come on, sit down. Forgot to put my flux down. This is what I usually do to have a little more control over these. Just get some flux on your surface. Come on. I don't know what it is. My flux has been getting kind of clogged up for some reason. I have no idea why. Now, do I just tin the whole thing now? Save time? That might be the way to go with this one. All right, so you stay here. Let go of my blade. Get this hair or whatever this is out of the way. And let's get this thing so it is conductive, because it's fine if all of it is. Where are you? Okay, so you come over here. And we're just going to shine this up on both sides, all the way across, because we want the center to also be conductive. Though it may be a little difficult to twist like this, but the main thing is that once you got this thing completely tinned, it has a tendency to heat up everywhere, no matter where you touch it, you know, like even more. And when I'm doing audio ICs, that's one of the things that kind of slows the process down, because you've got to get that solder mask on there anyways to hold it in place. Alright, so that should work, I hope. We shall see momentarily, and hopefully I didn't lose anything just now. That's my biggest fear. Move something, and if something else goes flying, let's set you down there. Then you have to start all over, which is never fun. Alright. Alright, so if I put you here, and we'll connect it. You know, I think we could do a straight shot, because this wire's pretty thick. We'll just connect this all the way across. And I suspect that this would probably work if we just jumped, you know, this straight across here. But that diode has to serve some purpose. So let's try to put it back how we found it. I should have tinned up these adjacent components first. Let's see if this is going to stick or not. Need some flux. Flux. So we'll get some flux on. Come on. Right there. I'll just put it everywhere. There we go. I'll clean it up later. Don't worry. Just want to make sure I hit this and that. Keep this steady. I hope this will attach. This is going to be an interesting one at the least. Alright, how do we do this, Mike? Try to keep it on the screen. Okay, you stay here. Right there. And then you. This is the tricky part, because you know what's going to happen. The moment I heat this sucker, it's going to melt off the other side. So can we just heat the component instead, like so, until it sticks? Hey, it worked. Surprise. Alright, so now we've got that in position, and we'll cut that off later. I'm not too worried about that. My main concern is getting this thing tinned, and then getting this dude to sit down on it, which I did cause a bit of trauma to the outside of this diode, but I think it'll be okay. And we might even want to tin the bottom side. Get some leaded solder on there to make sure it sticks. What do you think? It may be okay as is. And man, I don't know if we want to... It's going to have to be hot air here. I might end up putting some solder mask on this just to keep everything in place, because I think that's going to end up being an issue. So for the time being, I want a safe spot to put this diode in so I don't lose it. And I think the flux on top of my board holder is the perfect place, because if you've got something sticky, it's going to be more likely to behave. So let's take this guy away for a minute. And I'm going to hopefully not lose him in the process. We're going to set him down right there. If I can get it off the tweezers. That's always a fun part. Okay, so you can just chill there for a bit. Let's set that out of the way and prep this area so we don't have any funny stuff going on. So I really need to get this thing, get some leaded solder on here and try to get this old stuff off, because I know it's not going to stick. And this tip might even fit. Oh yeah. If we can get a lot of heat in here, we'll be fine. Just let this come up to temperature. Wow, that is really takes a lot of heat. It's crazy. Let's mix in a little more leaded and see if that helps at all. A wee bit more lead. Where's my lead? I need to get a solder spool. I am constantly losing this stuff. Actually, I don't think I even tinned this iron today, so let's do that, Mike. That might help. Alright, where are you? Yeah. It's so small in here. Boy. Not that much. Well, got a big old glob of solder there. The main thing, of course, is going to be getting this to stick down. And I think when we start blowing hot air on here, that is going to be an issue. So I'm going to go ahead and break off this wire and put this under some solder mask, so that we don't have any trouble with this shifting around. At least that is my plan. Metal fatigue. Come on. Try not to lose part of the wire inside the phone, because that would be bad. And let's just clean it off. I need a swab. Hope you're not using that cheap knockoff solder wick. Only to run the jumper, Dave. Only to run the jumper. That's about the only use that it's going to have. Which means I do need to buy some more. Let's warm this up a bit, because this stuff isn't going to want to come off as is. It actually did get pretty clean. Make that nice and liquid. I just grabbed the wrong Q-tip, though. These things are a mess. I'm going to have to come back and scrub this a bit later on. But I think... come on. Stupid Q-tips. Don't use Q-tips. And there is our piece of wire that I didn't want to get inside the phone. You need to get off of my tweezers. If you get... If I'm allowed to say it, if you get gun cleaning swabs, they work great. They are the best. And look at that. We have a big old chunk of solder hanging off of that nearby capacitor. So I'll clean that up as well. Don't sweat it, Harvey. I promise. I'm going to come back to that and make it look good here in a second. In fact, that looks like it's just kind of... Is that attached? That's not even attached. What in the heck is that, man? You need to go. Because this will fall down inside and bridge something together that it's not supposed to. I don't know how that happened. That's weird. It's like a piece of something broke off of there. Okay. Still not clean enough. These swabs right here are the best because they're small. You can get in anywhere, and they don't tend to leave behind much, if any, lint. So if you get a chance, these gun cleaning swabs, add those to your collection, and you'll never look back. There we go. That looks better. I don't know about that pad, though, guys. It looks like it... Is that going to reach? Eee. This is just a nightmare. Seems like it'd be an easy one, right? May have to put a slight bend in that wire. Yeah, thanks, Greg. I was thinking this... See, we think alike here. I was thinking the same thing there. Glad to see even repair professionals blob solder in their irons. Well, I was just kind of tinning it, but yeah, you know. As long as it comes off clean, we're good. Let's see. That's not a part of the component left on the pad. Nope. Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing, and I don't imagine I can really bend this. Shut this thing off. I don't think I can really bend this, guys, because it's not going to be very flexible, I wouldn't think. Let's see. I can't get a good... Where's my poker? Here we go. Let's see if we can... Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm not sure that's going to reach. Yeah, it's not going to reach. I don't have enough length unless I melt it again. So, comparing it to those... You know, I think that it might... I think you're right, though. It probably won't. Crap. If only we could just add a blob of solder in there. Wouldn't that be great? I suppose if I push it over... this is really annoying. Do I add another piece of wire, just kind of push that thing over to the side? I think you're right. I don't believe it's gonna fit because the contacts are about this far apart. That far to there. You know what? I think we might reach as is. God, that's annoying. All right. Let's push it over if we can without making a big mess. That's why I hate when these things get so time consuming, because definitely don't want to do it twice, right? And how far over can we go with that wire is the question. Hopefully it will shift without giving me a hard time. Not really getting enough heat on there. Shifted the wrong way. Alright, that's over. Yeah, that looks nasty. That's pretty much inside the square. What do you think? It's probably not enough. Alright, let's see if we can move the other end to the edge. See if we can get that all the way where it's setting right on the outside of this dude. And that should give us enough of an angle, I think. Although you know what's going to happen right now. I'm not going to say it. I'm trying not to jinx myself, but I have a feeling. Oh, that's too big. Let's try this instead. All right, how about that? I think that might work. As long as we're attached from one side to the other, we should be good. All right, are you touching him? Okay, so we have a solid connection there. I'm going to clean this up, get some solder mask on it, and we should be ready to put... I got too much rubbing alcohol on this thing. Should be ready to put this thing on and be done. That is my plan. So let's get this dried up. It'll look nicer after we're done, I promise. At least it should. Even if it doesn't, if it's functional, we're okay. Solder mask. Would you guys prefer I put the secondary camera view here instead of me? Because like right over here, so you can actually see what I'm doing on the bench. Issue is the flux in the solder burns away. This flux using necessary leaded solder has rosin core. Could try a dry fit of that diode. Yeah, I could, Greg. I'm being lazy and I don't want to bring it over here and then lose it in the process. I think we're good here. Don't you think? I mean, that's got to be close enough. Let's get this thing secured so that it doesn't slide around. And this is another fun part, is getting this solder mask to kind of go where you want it to and use as little as possible. I have a brand new ultraviolet curing lamp that I just got in last week because my other one, the bulbs are dying. And on those things, replacing the bulb costs as much as replacing the whole lamp, so there's no point. And Harvey, I have a very good fume extractor now, so I'm pretty safe there. I appreciate your concerns, but I am not breathing much of anything. I think 99.9% of all the fumes are being taken away by this thing. So I got a real fume extractor, not a smoke absorber, like something that actually protects your lungs from the rosin core, which, yes, multiple people brought that to my attention. And I said, you know what? I do want to live a little longer, so I'm going to go ahead and invest in something a little, more effective than what I had. All right, I'm going to throw this in the oven real quick and run into my camera on the way over. I love this thing. It has the light switch on the front too instead of the back. The other one was kind of a pain to adjust. Let's see, where are we? All right, so now what do I do to fill for time while we're waiting for this thing to cure? It should only take a few minutes, but let's have our other component over here ready to roll. So, we could go ahead and tin this, put some leaded solder on here, I think, just to make it easier to melt and stick on so we don't have to spend much time on there, because what's going to happen is it's going to want to fly away even though I have the solder mask on there. That's the kind of luck I have some days. Okay, so we'll just hit this with the iron real quick. Whatever you do, don't grab these too tight with your tweezers. They love to fly across the room. You only learn that the hard way once. I should put my gold curls over here instead of by the hand rest. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Okay, so this guy is ready. Will you stay on my tweezers for a bit? I'm going to actually leave the tweezers here until we're ready to take that thing out of the oven, so I don't lose anything. All right. So what else is going on? Let's see. Amazon stockholders asking the company not to sell facial recognition information to the government. What is Facebook doing again? Oh, so someone held a contest. It was like have you guys heard about this? It's like a 10-year contest thing where you take a picture of yourself 10 years ago and then a picture of yourself now, and supposedly they're saying that the real reason behind that was so that artificial intelligence could start learning how to recognize people and do age progression and that kind of stuff, and that's supposedly the big scandal. There's some weird stuff going on lately. My channel being demonetized, probably not the biggest concern I have, but it's becoming a strange world. Also, Martin Luther King Day today. I did not know this, but there is also a conspiracy theory surrounding his death, or his assassination actually, that seems to be more plausible than the JFK conspiracy theory. So I'm interested in that. I'm kind of bummed that Nate's not here because I wanted to run that by him as well. So I think that we should probably within. Oh, our Mike. Hey, how's it going? I just saw your wave up there. See, did I miss any other comments here today? Would the organization? No, I think we are caught up there. So hopefully this thing will dry up pretty quick, and we can get it installed and be done. Watch the battery be dead. That's kind of the way my day's been going. What else do I have on the table here? I've got a Galaxy S8 that, if you guys have run into this, say something. Galaxy S8 that will only work with a charged battery. If you put a charged battery in it, you can charge it up, but once you disconnect the charger, the battery drains rapidly. Like you lose 20% in an hour or something like that. So if anyone's run into that, say something, because I'm still kind of, I've looked all over the board. It seems like the charging circuit is working properly, like the voltage is going, it's getting current to where it needs to, obviously, or otherwise the battery wouldn't be getting charged, but it's draining rapidly, and I can't figure out why. I don't know if that has something to do with the charging IC. I'm tempted to change out that Max charging IC just because we know we do have some issues with those with Samsungs, but I hate to do something for no reason, and I can't think of what it is I'm overlooking. They've changed out the charge port, changed out the battery multiple times. No evidence of physical damage or liquid damage on the board. So I don't know. Really curious about that one. I have a Nintendo Switch that I'm working on, and unfortunately it's got an issue, and I don't have a donor board, so I'm kind of waiting for that to come in. So hopefully by next week I'll have that figured out, and you guys can get a look at the inside of this thing. I actually have it right here, torn down. And this was it was supposed to be a USB-C issue. So if you haven't seen the inside of these, they're kind of cool. Got the battery connected here, replace the USB-C, and it does not charge. And there is low resistance on a couple areas on the board. But again, I don't really have a guide. I don't have a schematic. Nothing sticks out as being physically damaged. So until I get another one on hand to compare values to, I really don't know what I'm looking for on this thing. I don't have a lot of experience with these handheld consoles, but hopefully that one will be an upcoming project with any luck. What else do we have? I think that's the majority of my brain teasers that I can't figure out at the moment. My channel wasn't demonetized. It was the last Google Hangout that I did. It was the last tech hangout that I did. So it wasn't the one where I interviewed Richard Gage, but it was the one prior to that, and I have no idea why it was demonetized. There was, seriously, the only potentially offensive thing I can think of is at the beginning, there was a picture of the Twin Towers on fire because during my intro, I did a promotion for the video to say, hey, next week, put this on your calendar. And it was a still image. It wasn't graphic in the way, there were no people in it, it was just a building on fire. And if you look through my thumbnails, you can see it. Outside of that, I didn't cuss in the video. I didn't criticize Google or YouTube or anything. So I'm really baffled. I don't know what it was. And I asked them to review it. I appealed, which, on that video, these Hangout videos don't get tons of views, so it's not a big deal. But I'm a little, concerned that they decided to demonetize something on my channel because I try to follow all the community guidelines as much as I can. And I didn't get an explanation, but they did tell me that it's been reviewed manually and they decided that it is not appropriate for monetization. So I have no idea why. I can't imagine where that decision came from. But at the same time, I'm not completely surprised because this is something I've been talking about for a while. We've seen other channels that don't break any of the community, they don't do anything wrong, and for no apparent reason they get demonetized. And I kind of felt like it's probably only a matter of time before that gets around to everyone, to somebody, to one of your videos here or there for whatever reasons. I don't know why it is. It's probably some crazy algorithm thing they have. And indeed, it did happen to me. And, you know, I said, hey, please just let me know what I did wrong and I won't do that again. But you don't get that kind of answer. You just get, yep, we looked at it. We determined we're right and it's not going to be monetized. And that's all there is to it. And I don't know what it was. Like to this day, I can't figure it out. So I'm hoping that maybe I can contact some of the staff that I've worked with at YouTube in the past and they can direct me to someone who can answer that for me. A&E, AVE. Yeah, I know who you're talking about, Greg. It's, what's the guy's name? I know who you're talking about. The blog has also issues and never got a straight answer from YouTube. Yeah, that's typical. It's unfortunate that they won't at least tell you what you did, right? Maybe the picture was too political sensitive in the future. You might have to heavily pixelate your pictures. You know, I thought the same thing, Harvey, but here's the deal. There are plenty of 9/11 videos that actually show the building coming down, like the full everything that was on the news, and those channels, many of them are monetized. So I don't understand what specifically about my video was a problem, unless somebody just looked at the first 30 seconds and said, oh, this is about a building burning and nothing else. Maybe I should have put more content, but you know, clearly it says at the bottom, the live stream is starting in a few minutes, and this is just, you know, a streaming intro, and I don't know, man. I don't know. But if it happens again, then I'll start worrying, I guess. Then I'll start looking at how else I can monetize or do something different, or at least, you know, hopefully stay on YouTube. That's my ultimate goal. I just don't want to get off, you know, not be able to publish to YouTube, especially if I don't know why. You know, if I don't know what it is that I did that they found disagreeable. That's my concern. Yeah, Dave Jones, I got you. EEV blog. That's the one. Yep, I've seen him. He is quite an energetic guy. When I've watched him, he's just like, he's got way more energy. Plus, I always watch everything at double speed, so he's like literally moving around and talking so fast. That's one of the channels that I have to slow down so that I can, you know, I put him at like 1.25, because if you put him at 2x, especially with a bit of an accent, for me, it's hard to understand what he's saying sometimes. But yeah, a cool blog. There's so much good content out there. It's hard to have enough hours in the day to watch it all. All right, I'm going to pull this thing out of the oven. Carefully try not to lose my diode that's sitting on tweezers, and hopefully it's ready to roll. Let's kill this ultraviolet thing and see what this looks like. Okay, so you just go right over there for the moment, and let's see if this dried. Actually, I like this direction better. Where are you? Okay. If not, I might use my laser light or my UV flashlight instead. Yeah, there could be a good use for this aftermarket solder wick. Use it for jumper wires. Looks pretty solid. Okay, I think we're in. I think we're good there. Now, I got to say, floating this thing on, I think might be tricky. I hope it cooperates. Flux. Where's my flux? Here we go. Hope it cooperates, because if not, this is going to be a struggle that I don't want to have you guys have to watch, because it could make this video even longer than it already is. It's not my intention. It's just the way that things came out. And of course, for people that do the replay, you can save a lot of time and just jump ahead. All right, so we've got lead there, lead on the bottom of this thing. That, in my mind, should be sufficient to get this on at a lower temperature, so we don't have to worry about things flying off the board. We said that the stripes are not going to be on ground. It's going to be the other side. So now I'm going to need something else to manipulate this bad boy. Where are you? Where are my tweezers? Okay. Get off there. And you're going to set something. Something like that is the idea, right? This should work, shouldn't it? It's too bad you can't just use the tweezers on this thing, the micro tweezers. This is going to be fun. All right, well, hopefully we can get surface tension to do some work here, but I'm skeptical because it's just... Yeah. All right, I'm going to come in slow at lower temperature than I used to remove it. So let's try 380 and see if this dude wants to cooperate. And if I blow it off the board and have to start all over, I might just spare you guys that second take, because that's going to be time consuming. All right, let's see if we can get this dude without making a mess. You want to cooperate with me somewhat? Oh, look at that. We might... Come on. Over here. There you go. Ah, he jumped off from where I wanted it to be, really. Okay, I need this to come over to the right just a hair. Like that. Ah. Be nice if this was all smooth and flat, right? There we go. You can go crooked if you want. I don't mind that. Just stick. That's all we need. He jumped. And it looks like some of this is melting. There we go. I think we might be on. I think maybe we're on. I mean, it's not moving. I'm concerned about this side because that ground is just more difficult to melt. But the good news is now it's sitting on that wire. So maybe if we just heat this enough to melt, if that's even an option, let's get some more flux. Flux. See if we can just heat one side, you know, from the bottom. Right down there, and if it will flow together. I'm using my tweezers because I just don't have enough space for the big iron here, but if we hit this, yeah, it's not happening. Alright, let's get some air at a slightly lower temperature and the iron, and we should be able to get this thing to flow a little better, because I'm not confident that that's really connected underneath, but with the combination of these two, we should be able to do one of these. There we go. Now you're on. Do you see that? Oh, too much. Okay. Now we saw him move and stick, and I think we are good for the most part. I'm not going to worry too much about those adjacent components being spotless because there's nothing that's going to break off or make contact anywhere else. I think we're good. I'll take a closer look here in a sec. Yeah, I think that might work. Looks a little funny, but it does appear to be connected. And I think it's solid enough that we are tapped into that line. Yeah, should be fine. Alright, so let's see if this is going to work. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I don't get this. This is the weirdest thing. When I lose my audio, I cannot open the sound properties on my computer for like 30 seconds. Like I have to keep trying to open it over and over. And when I finally do, then I can disable and re-enable my mic and it starts working. And I don't know why. I don't know. Ever since I went to Windows 10, life has become much more complicated. In any case, I don't know how much you missed, but we actually have a functional power button. I assume that the lock function will work also. It's very difficult to click on this little button inside here with my spudger because it's a small round disc. Come on. Can't find it's very difficult to get your point right on this thing, and I don't think the whole... Oh, can we put the whole thing in there? No. I can't get this inside, but you guys saw it power up, so we do have a functional power button. It's just very difficult to press this thing. I should have put the buttons inside. Let's see, can we do it from here? Where are you? All right, I seriously can't see this thing. I'll have to put the button back in to make it work. And I don't think it's an easy thing because once again, Motorola has this goofy design where the button actually has a little hole in the center of it. Let's see, can we see that? Probably not. Okay, so there's a little hole in the center of the button. So you've got to take the frame apart, set it on there. The springs already fell out. I've got to get that part back together, but I think this has gone long enough. This was a success. The phone is working. If it doesn't, I will come back and tell you, but I'm confident that this power button is okay now and should function as a lock and power down and everything else. Again, if it doesn't, I'll let you know, but I can't think of any reason why it wouldn't. So we should be ready to go. Yes, Windows 10, Greg. Welcome to my nightmare. Everything I do with Windows 10 is frustrating, and I've never had so many problems with an operating system in my life. Although I did skip Windows 8 altogether, so I don't know how good that is. But it has caused so many issues, and now it updates without getting authorization. Like, I can't turn off the auto update. So sometimes it's like, do you want to shut down your computer and update, or do you want to restart an update? And I'm like, no, I don't want to update at all. And apparently that's been taken away as an option. So the sooner I can get away from Windows, honestly, the sooner I can get away from Windows and OS X, the happier I will be. So I have installed Linux on another computer, and if it will do everything I can do with Windows, it's going to be goodbye. Well, you can never fully get away from Windows, but it will be used much less often than it is right now because it's making me insane. And same with my Mac. Ever since the last update, it's just, it doesn't do what it's supposed to. It's annoying. They want me to buy another computer, I know. Win 10 Pro can defer upgrades. Oh, cool. I will look into that because I've had it. Like, I don't need upgrades. My computer works fine. I don't need it to work any better than it does. I need it to stay where it's at because, you know, the Microsoft. Oh, and by the way, guys, did you hear Microsoft is advising Windows mobile customers to get an Android or an iPhone because they are done. So don't expect, if there's 3 people out there who still use a Windows phone, unfortunately, you're probably not going to get any support updates, bug fixes, nothing. It's time to move on. And it's really sad, you know, because they started out doing something that looked kind of cool, and then they just never really got behind it and totally just missed the whole app market. And even when they had great phones, they've gone along with that Windows mentality of, you know, if it's not broke, break it. And consistently, it seems like that's what they do. I don't get it. It's really weird. Okay, so Windows 10 Pro can defer updates. I'm gonna get that, man. But for sure, I'm liking what I know of Linux so far. Seems like a good alternative, and it is supported with OBS, and it is supported with something else that I use quite a bit. So, on Discord and a couple other apps that I use. So I'll be happy to get away from that, and supposedly it will perform better, which means we'll have better streaming. So, anyways, that's pretty much it. Thanks everyone who hung in here to watch, or if you came back to watch the replay. I don't know if I should even leave this video up. There's going to be so many gaps because of the audio problems, which is a bummer because I thought this was kind of a cool, this is kind of a different repair, you know, a unique one that you don't see very often. So maybe I'll just download the video, chop it up, and edit it and do a voiceover and republish it again. But anyways, I'll try to get back on here again later on this week. I don't know for sure if it will be on Thursday evenings. I'm going to try to do an afternoon and an evening live stream, but it's just kind of tough because I got lots of phones to get caught up on. But I certainly appreciate you guys being here. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Greg. Everyone, Harvey, all you guys who joined, thanks for coming on, and I will talk to you next time.